Hello, and welcome to this episode of Not Just Ghost Stories. I'm your host, Josh, joined by Jackie and Laura. We are a small team of experienced paranormal investigators, and here we discuss different locations that we've investigated, along with a little history and the paranormal evidence that we found. Today, we will be discussing and exploring Fairfield County Infirmary, located in Lancaster, Ohio. Laura, could you tell us a little about the history of the place?
Absolutely. The Fairfield County Poorhouse was also known as the Fairfield County Infirmary. It was erected in 1828 as a wooden building. The building as well as the grounds were upgraded through the years, and by 1958, it was a brick building that had water, electricity, including outbuildings for like farm equipment because they did do their own crops and things. Fairfield did take in all types of social outcasts, including mentally disabled, alcoholics, people just down on their luck, those with severe mental health and physical disabilities. Due to the high death rate there is also a cemetery where they approximate there's probably 400 to 500 graves. There are no headstones and they're not marked. By 1881, the poorhouse housed 124 people. Samuel Fetters, which is the most well-known superintendent, was put in place in 1884 and was one of the souls that still does reside there, we believe. Several suicides were rumored to be happening there. The population of inmates declined over the years till only 16 remained when the poorhouse was closed in 1985. In 1986, it was remodeled and became the Clarence E. Miller Building, and that housed county offices and the health department and continued on for that for 27 years, closing in 2011. Currently, and since 2020, paranormal investigations have been ongoing. It is now the home for the authentic Twisty the Clown bus from the American Horror Stories, and common sightings include a young girl with blonde hair named Susie, Willie, a man who is often seen on the upper floors, and a woman wearing 1800s-style clothing has been spotted.
All right. Thank you for the history on that building. Now, what I can say is I remember first pulling up to this building and how this place was kind of seemed like it was just by itself, just out there. There was some outbuildings and everything, but it was all just fields kind of around it. So it was kind of really weird pulling up to the building like that was only it. Jackie, what do you remember?
That it was cold and snowy, but the place was awesome.
Yeah. Laura, do you remember first impressions pulling up to the building?
Yeah, pulling up. It's daunting. It is large, and obviously it's old. Unfortunately, the grounds were kind of hard to see because when we said snowy, there was a lot of snow, so we unfortunately didn't get to do too much on the grounds.
Yeah. Now going into the building, the place was, like Jackie said, it was cold. Jackie, you had a thermal, just kind of checking stuff out. It was, how cold was it inside the building?
It was a balmy 27 degrees.
It was warmer outside. We literally would go outside to warm up.
It really was.
Yeah, there was no heat in this building except the one tiny bathroom.
Yeah. And trying to get everybody into that was not happening. But for some reason, we all had to go to the bathroom a whole lot that night. I don't know what it was.
I think I went through 12 pairs of socks.
Don't bring up the socks.
But yeah, it was a very cold day itself. It was a cold day just inside the building, and the overnight. The owner of it, took us through the place, and he's like, "You got this place as long as you want it," but we spent quite a few hours there, but to the point to where we couldn't move our limbs anymore by the end of it. It was too hard to even walk up, stairs. So, and with how cold it was. But going through everything, what was first initial feels inside the building?
Well, to me, Fairfield was one of those places that make you do the ghost hunters dance, even though you do it inside because people laugh at you when you do it, where they can see it and stuff. It's just one of those places you're like, yes, if I'm a ghost hunter, I would die and live here because this place is haunted and it's big and imposing and it's creepy and it doesn't have any heat. And I mean, it's just like, yeah, it's a ghost hunter's dream, at least my dream and stuff. So, and it didn't take long before it proved that I was right.
Yeah. Well, as far as I know, Laura's ghost hunter's dream, she would rather have it warmer. Would I be right on
You would.
that?
You would on that. But I'm kind of with Jackie. It didn't take long. You know, the first 15 steps you're in there, you just know that you're not alone. It feels oppressive. Um, just really big, and you can just feel energy coming from so many places you don't really know where you want to start.
Yeah, but I remember during the initial walkthrough, like I said, he was taking us through things. There was parts of the floor that he said you don't want to kind of walk over there. It's, a little unsafe, but he's like, you can go down those rooms, just kind of be careful. I would appreciate that. But just walking through those areas, I felt that the energy it was already spiked up at that point, just kind of made me excited for the rest of the night. So that being said, let's start in the attic on this one. We'll start from the top and work our way down of this building. The attic feelings. What kind of feelings did you all have?
Well, first off, the attic was where the poor people were housed. They had different wings and stuff, but they also had people up there that were sleeping there and stuff, and they were big. And I remember we walked into it not from the main stairs the first time, but from the secondary stairs, which brought us into a room, which if we went left, we were in the attic where most people were sleeping. If we went right, we would go back out into the main hall. We went left and we went into the room, and the first thing I remember is, why are those people standing in the two corners facing the corner? But they were adults, and they just stood in the corner facing the wall, and sadness, hopelessness. It was just very strange.
Yeah. So, Laura, what did you think about, the attic as a whole?
The attic for me was probably one of the most scary just because I could feel what some of those people had experienced. There's a room with chains on the wall.
Mhm.
And for me, I could see people. I don't want to stay standing there. People that were tied to that wall. Um, the lady stuck out the most for me. Of course, it looked like a white dress, but I think that's just not necessarily that she had a white dress. I think that's just how they come across. But it was a battered dress, and her hair was all kinds of stringy looking. She was a dirty blonde, and she was just crying, and she was thirsty, and she was said that she had been there for days and she didn't know why she was there.
I mean, the attic for me, Jackie, I can remember the people standing in the corner, and you even looked at me and said, "Why are they over there?" And we tried to ask questions. I don't think we got any
No,
answers.
they wouldn't respond to us.
Yeah, it was almost like they were herded there and told to remain quiet.
And we did kind of assume too, with how Jackie described that she saw them like standing facing the wall. That is common with some mental disabilities.
Hmm.
We don't really know as far as why in the medical field, but we see it happen. It's just a focal point. They get stuck on it. In my opinion, I don't think they even see the wall. I think they initially pick out a focal point on it, and then their mind, creates its own
Thing.
space, and they're just, they're there.
Yeah. Well, one of the more memorable parts to me, memorable, if I could talk today, would be when we were on the other side and there was children that we could feel, we knew that they were there. We had to finally start playing games with them. We had the REM pod out in the middle of the room, and basically playing, okay, let's race to see who can touch the REM pod first. Had to
Yes.
make them understand that it wasn't going to hurt them. But it was, they seemed to respond more to me trying to get up there and race against me. And we were actually getting some really good hits on that REM pod. I would kind of walk across the room and say, okay, on the count of three, we're going to do this. And by the time I would take 2 steps toward it and I was 8 steps away, the REM pod was going off. And then just going, oh man, you got me. Okay, let's try this again. We're going to do it again. Everybody back up. And during that time, I can remember hearing you guys talk because you were standing more behind me going, look at this. This is weird. And Jackie, you had your thermal cam, correct?
Yeah. And there was a heat signature next to you, which in a building that the high was 27, usually fell down around 23. to see a heat signature next to you was just like, where the heck is it coming from?
Yeah, and that heat signature was just
Small.
over waist high of me, and I'm 6 foot tall, so it's a small heat signature that while we're going to the REM pod, they were standing next to me, and I remember it being a very fun time inside of that building. There wasn't a whole lot. I mean, the whole entire ghost hunt as a whole was fun to me, but that was a fun time in that building compared to other things where it got a little bit more serious that we'll get into.
Coup-
But it was fun.
a couple of points about the attic is, two, I think we should take notice that for each of us, it was a different part memorable. Like, it wasn't the same areas that were, high contact.
Yeah.
And the second point would be, even with the living, children are attracted to play with you. I don't know if they just think you're like a big jungle gym or what. So I just think it's fascinating that, even when you're talking to departed souls, still children are like attracted to play with you.
Yeah, and to make context, I do have like kids for some reason flock to me whenever they're in groups, and I play with them. I think that's kind of what they like the most, and I don't know what it is. I mean,
You never grew up.
But yeah, I think you'd never expect that dead people, dead children, would maintain their innocence. The innocence that they had in life with just, I got a cut, but somebody will make it better, and then we move on and stuff. They take that into death with them.
Yeah, which is just an amazing thing to think of as you go through things and you start to do this. Anytime we find some type of child, they always keep that innocence, and they just like to have fun. Even after life, they want to play games. They want to play hide and seek. You hear that a lot. Even you watch different shows, you read different stories about ghost hunting. They hey, this child loves to play hide and seek. They want you to come find them, or they want to come find you. And to think that children in the afterlife is just a crazy thing for them to just keep playing the games. They love having fun.
And that is one nice thing about the spirit of children. You don't have to spend a lot of money on toys. They love a ball or a little blinking light that goes on and off.
Yeah, exactly. Um, we have the one part of our kids, a little toy ball where they hit it and it lights up and the blue and red lights on it, and they love that. We've had it happen at Dunkirk, like we talked about.
It's really the only place we've seen it work is where there was children. So,
Yeah,
of course, that would make sense.
Or a cat.
Or a cat. I know. You're always just wanting to really catch an animal if you're me.
Well, I actually have caught animals before. It's kind of odd that you can sort of communicate with them.
Mm-hmm.
all right. Well, let's go on now to the next floor down of Fairfield. Now, as you walk, up or down the stairs, once you come off into the main area, you have a left and a right hallway. The left hallway was always usually the women's area, according to the owner and history. The right area was the men's area on the other side of those stairs. And it seemed to me as you would walk across different sides, you would get different energies. I felt like it was a little bit heavier energy on the men's side, lighter energy on the women's side, but you had more things happen on the women's side most of the time. And would I be correct in saying that?
Yeah, and one thing you might want to bring up is the stairs themselves. I believe we attributed it to the superintendent there, but there were times on those stairs that you hung onto the railing because there was something behind you, and it wasn't demonic, but it certainly wasn't a happy spirit, and it I think given the opportunity, it would have pushed us down the stairs.
Yeah, it did feel like it's like they were, crowding over your back, just any minute somebody was going to
Yeah.
give you a little.
Well, that was an energy where he just felt like you are not supposed to be here. You're not wanted here. You need to get out of here. That energy for me seemed like it wanted to follow us all over the place and just get us out somehow, some way, whether it tries to scare us or whether it tries to intimidate us or something, is what I felt about that one.
We run into energy like that, and I always feel like they're just like, I'm the big man on campus. I'm throwing my weight around.
Yeah. So, I mean, as we, get into those, there is one out there now down at the end of the women's hall. Was it third floor? The one below the attic. There was a cage door at the end that was at one point held as far as like a prison for if they did something wrong. Correct?
It was a place they could lock them up, and according to our guide, the transgressions that could get you locked up and also could get you chained up in the attic was simple things as you didn't keep your room clean. So it was, little things that it wasn't that, you killed somebody, but you didn't keep your room clean and you could spend the day in, it was like a bedroom, big as a bedroom. And it had a barred door on it, and they could spend a day or so in that room for transgressions.
Yeah. Well, even to one point, according to um, our guide, he even said, it could be as if the superintendent thought you were trying to flirt with him as a woman, he would just throw you in there.
Yeah.
I was going to point out too that some of the things that were listed in the logs would have been, some of them, it wasn't that they were doing anything, it was their mental disability,
Yeah.
Just making noises and
it makes you really feel sad, overall because the people couldn't help it. And then you had this one guy that just decided this is what I'm going to do.
yeah, they reprimanded people for things they had no control over.
Yeah.
And couldn't change about themselves no matter how long they locked them somewhere.
Yeah.
I think that was one of the crazy things about when I first heard about it, a poorhouse. That is so neat that these poor people that couldn't afford, due for some reason, lost job, depression, whatever, they couldn't afford to feed their families. So they could take their families to this place, and yeah, they had jobs to do and stuff like that, but they took care of them. So you have that on the outside, and then when you get into it with the rules and regulations, it turns to the fact that it's a good thing, but yet now I've locked up this woman because she wore the wrong thing or she said the wrong thing and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it was opened with great intentions, perhaps just, the wrong people in charge that, really weren't that pleasant of people making the rules.
Well, let's get into that. Let's get into the superintendent because this superintendent, and I know that we only have one superintendent name, right? But there was
Yes.
a few different superintendents throughout the whole entire thing. We're not 100% sure on which one he is. But one of them was pretty ruthless. From things that that we've read about. One of them actually used to take the people outside just to whip them. Pretty much is what they used to do. And that's what we really feel was following us around the building. Right? I mean,
He was, we first encountered him on the men's side. Well, we were going to go up the stairs, and I remember, I don't know, Laura, if you went in there first or I went in there first, but putting a foot on the stairs and going, okay, I don't think I want to go up there because there's something up there and stuff, which we did go up and stuff because we're tough ghost hunters. But anyway, we encountered him there, and it was a human figure. I always got the impression when he faced you, it was human. But if he turned around, there was this darkness attached to him.
yeah.
I believe from the stories that have been passed down that, the guide was able to share with us, if it's the superintendent we all think it is, he was that way in life. So I think he's got a dark attachment, but I also am not for sure that it wasn't there before he died.
Yeah. Well, and with the superintendent, it was one of the, like I said, again, he followed us everywhere. He did not want us to be there.
No.
And where he seemed the strongest was in what would have been the administrative areas of the poorhouse, which was down on the bottom floor,
His office.
his
yeah.
office area. It was very strong when we ended up making it down there. To the point to where we decided we're just going to sit down and start to confront him. But he really didn't want to confront us at that point, which
No.
was kind of crazy to me. I'm like, why are you want to be so strong throughout this whole entire building? But when we actually come to you, you back off. Why are we doing this?
I believe it was because he knew that the other souls that are there were seeing what we were doing
Yeah.
and how we were treating him and, letting them know that he doesn't have any power over them anymore.
He was one. When I saw him on the stairs, he did not come down on the stairs. He did not come down further on the stairs, which I thought he might, but he didn't. But when we turned to leave, then he came down. So we did an experiment, and somehow I got to be the guinea pig. They put me in the one hallway. I wasn't locked in or anything, but it was just me there, and they were in the doorway where they were kind of out of sight. And he was still in that stairwell, and anytime I turned around, he'd be right there. I turned to face him, he'd fade off and stuff. The one thing that was kind of something new, you've heard us talk about safe ghost hunt, non-safe ghost hunts. You don't know until you get there, so you go with protection, and protection is whatever you think protects you. And I have some pretty good protection, but twice this spirit touched me.
Yeah. Well, and even with the spirit, and we're not 100% sure, we were in the maintenance parts of these buildings. So if you're on the main floors down at the bottom, we're off. You go off to another hallway down the side. There was a boiler room. There was a maintenance office. There was different things in that. And we went into the boiler room area. All three of us were standing in there. There was a huge bellows hanging up on the wall. And Jackie, I can remember you mentioning it, like, look at the size of this thing. I mean, it was ginormous.
It was bigger than me.
Yeah, I mean, it was huge. And you're like, look at this. And then there was a growl at the door behind us. Now, me and Laura were closer to the door. And both of us reacted at the same time, basically saying, oh crap, what was that?
No matter how many times you ghost hunt, that's still scary.
I then, pulled Laura in because she was actually a little closer to the door than I was. I remember pulling you in a little bit more behind me, and I walked out into the hallway and looked down, and there's nothing around there, thinking maybe just an animal that we're getting too close to because of where we were at.
Got to roll it out.
You got to roll it out. We got to roll out what we can. Jackie, do you remember hearing the growl?
No, I did not hear the growl. I was fascinated by the bellows, and I did not hear the growl. And of course, we all had recorders on us. My recorder did not pick up a growl.
Yes, but mine and Laura's recorder did. You can hear it, and then you would hear both of us react to it. It's short, it's sweet, but it was loud enough to where it really startled us for a second as far as what exactly it was. So yeah, we did, actually have that. Now, was it the superintendent? We can't 100% say, because we did investigate some more. We never really got any answers about it, but it could have been, especially we had our backs turned to that door. So if we had our backs turned, maybe he was trying to say, hey, get out. You're not supposed to be here. Or it could have been something else, right?
It could have been because that's on the basement. We ran into something, again, totally different. Fairfield was just one surprise after another.
Yeah. Now, Fairfield is by far one of my favorite ghost hunts. We've had quite a few ghost hunts, and it's one of the ones that sticks out in my memory very well.
It's just so active. I mean, so many people passed through there and died there. And some of them were there their entire life.
Yeah.
There's cases where they were born there, lived there their whole life. They didn't know any other way. So of course they would be attached there. They don't know any other place.
Yeah. And even getting into the newer parts of the building, at one point it was, the health department. It was, some county offices and things like that. I think there was even some carryover from some of those county offices. We walked into an office and we felt an energy, and it was almost like Jackie, how would you describe it? You described it earlier.
Was that the doctor's office?
I think so.
Yeah, don't touch things in the doctor's office. You'll get some disgusting feelings from it. It was a sort of I'm a doctor, I'm helping you, but maybe his methods weren't that nice.
Yeah.
So you had a helpful yet painful kind of feeling.
Yeah. Well, and there was an office lady who basically she's like, I'm too busy for you. There wasn't that energy.
She was too good for us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just
We were just poor folk.
So, I mean, there's so many different energies inside this building, and that's what made it so interesting. overall, is trying to figure out what was going on and decipher what was happening. You know, the reports in this building, just from other ghost hunters, if you go through and research people, post stuff on it or see things, even the owner himself, he owns a couple different places. This one here is just a really cool one for him. And he said, there's just so much happening inside this building that it's hard to decipher it all. He had, outside on the property, they started doing, some different radar scans and
Yeah, they
stuff.
did ground penetrating radar, I believe.
And they were finding like little spots. There were so many people that passed away that came through there that were not claimed, that they actually had to
Sure.
start burying them straight up and down.
Yeah, I mean, you got to think upon opening this building. That was when, if something was wrong with you, to your family, you didn't exist.
Yeah.
They found somewhere for you to go, and that was the end of the relationship. And there was also people, that they say that they think just were passing through and, passed there, and they didn't know who to contact.
Yeah.
So those people were there as well.
Well, it went through the Depression years too, where people were moving job to job, or where the husband went out to find the job and was traveling around, and he gets someplace, he gets a job, he's working on the railroad, and he gets killed. Nobody knows him, so they just bury him where they can.
Yeah.
Well, and at the same time, if you think on the ground floor of this building, one side of it at one point was used as a funeral home.
Yeah.
So they had to,
Mhm.
there was so much stuff that happened through there too. It was on the opposite side of where the superintendent's quarters were. There was things that happened
Yeah,
there.
and we didn't even touch on that particular area, but that's got some heavy feelings in it. I mean,
To me, it was a lot of sadness feelings because
yeah,
that was kind of somebody's final resting spot that didn't know where they were.
Right.
So,
And that nobody came to the burial,
yeah.
or the poor people probably. They
I was
might have
going to
made
say,
the poor
plus you
people.
have all of what would be your family living, in this one building because they lived there all their lives. So I would think you would become like a familial unit.
Mhm.
So you have all of them people grieving every time someone passes. That's just a lot of sadness over however many years.
Also on the ground floor, and it's not a polite form of society and stuff, but it made a real strong impression on me. We walked into that one room, which is now used as a storeroom or something. There was a lot of stuff in it, but it was big. And I remember a man in the back just yelling at us. They were prostituting the women out in that room. And
I
he
almost
was
forgot about that.
he was not happy we were there. And he was very irate.
I almost forgot about that part of the building.
So are we talking about the room that had the paneling in it?
Yeah. The one where you felt like people, I felt like that was prostitution going on there.
Very much so.
And
yeah.
the women weren't agreed to it.
No, it was very painful for some of them. I mean, they were forced. They essentially were, I guess, raped.
And I think there was young.
Yeah.
There was some young.
Some young, yeah. Just
Yeah.
a terrible place. I mean, it's like black market type stuff going on.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, I mean, this whole entire building, it's so interesting because the energies are just so up and down throughout the whole entire building. It can really, it takes a toll on you, but it keeps you going at the same time, is what I felt about this whole building as a whole.
Oh yeah, it was like a little universe of, and over here we're gonna have some prostitution. Over here we're gonna have some people being beaten, and over here we've got some weird director. I mean, it was just like kind of like a fun house almost,
Or like
a ghost hunter's dream.
If you took just some random town and took all of the negative pieces out, stories and run-ins, and you put all of them just in this one place.
Yeah.
Also, because it was snowing, because it was dark, because it was freezing, when we first got there, we looked in, wandered around the outbuildings. A couple of those, I got some interesting feelings off of that. I thought might be interesting to go in there, and we did not touch the cemetery at all.
Well,
So
bucket list to go there when it's not snowing.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, and that's what I was going to get to, is some of the outbuildings. I know that there's probably stuff happening out there. It's just the issue was a a lot of it was cold. And, we couldn't do the cemetery because of the snow, really, because I think at that point it was almost about a foot deep just trying to get through it. And it was a little bit harder to go through and around in those areas. So, well, let me ask you guys this. As a whole, what was your overall feelings? Well, is it a safe hunt? Is it a not safe hunt? Is it something, hey, just be careful? That type of thing.
I think you definitely have to have protection in this place and be prepared that, not everybody's friendly there.
Well, being a ghost hunter's dream, there could be all the demons in hell there, and I'd be like, yes, we should go there.
Well, let me ask you this then. Would you have done anything different from what we actually did?
No, I did not like that superintendent and his attachment got through my protection. I do not allow them to touch me, and he touched me twice, and he did it like an asshole would do it. He did it to rub it into me. But it also got me thinking about maybe I need to step up my protection. So, and it kind of worked out.
I think it was exactly what we needed for each of us.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And then as far as equipment throughout this whole entire, because we use
everything here,
almost everything there, I think that we have. Does anything stick out to you? As far as your star, what we would call your star piece of equipment?
This one's going to be hard because they really did interact with almost everything we tried, just to be honest. Somewhere, something got used in that building.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So for me, I'm going to go with the REM pod. That was active.
That's right, in the little girl's room. She really liked that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with my thermal because aside from telling me that, yes, I had the right to be cold. I mean, when you saw a heat signature, you knew it wasn't because there's a furnace going or a fire going or there's people, because even our body temperatures were in the blue section and stuff. It meant that something paranormal, something not normal was there.
Yeah. As far as for me, we did use a lot at that time. We had the SLS camera, which stopped working not too long after that. Now we've got it up and running again, but the SLS camera came in really handy there. We did see a lot of stuff on that. REM pod, there was really hits throughout almost the whole entire building with the REM pod. That was one of my favorite parts, was playing the games with the kids up in the attic with the REM pod. So I'm going to have to go with a 50-50 with the SLS and the REM pod on this one.
It's so hard to pick the equipment. If you're a ghost hunter that gets bored easy, or you're just trying to simply prove something to someone in the least amount of time, this is the place to go. Yeah. You ain't got to work for it. It's going to happen.
Yeah, take a skeptic there.
Yes.
Have them walk out.
Even if you only own one piece of equipment, that's enough.
And, we all forgot our most important piece of equipment on that ghost hunt. Those hand warmers that you break open and they give you heat for 12 hours.
They're not just for your hands.
Yeah, when you have a cold one, make sure you bring plenty of hand warmers, plenty of gloves, and for Laura, plenty of socks.
Yeah. Yep.
We have a suitcase for just socks.
And a trailer.
Check us out on Facebook and we'll put a post up of what the socks are about.
All right. And with all of that, this has been Not Just Ghost Stories. We have been your hosts, Josh,
Laura,
and Jackie.
And until next time, you can find information and contact us on our website at notjustghoststories.com and see evidence that we've discussed on Facebook at Not Just Ghost Stories. Thanks.